So we're going to go through a couple of examples here of using a simulation to determine experimental or empirical probability. And you will be carrying out an assignment where you will create your own problem and you will be completing these particular tasks for the problem that you create. So we're going to go through them with a couple of examples, and hopefully that will get you off to the races with creating your own problem and carrying out the simulation. So the first problem that we're going to look at is a family plans to have 4 children. Find the probability that they will have 2 girls and 2 boys. And we're assuming equal chance for each gender to be born. So the first task is to explain why it would be appropriate to use a simulation as opposed to performing trials of the experiment. So in this situation, actually performing trials of the experiment would mean we would have to find 50 families that have 4 children and collect data from them on what is the gender of their children. So that's, it's possible to do that, but it would be time consuming to find 50 families to do 50 trials. And so that would be, a time consuming and difficult thing to do. The other thing would be to have a person give birth to 4 children 50 times, which in that case would be impossible. So using a simulation here is going to allow us to determine this probability in a much faster way. The second thing you're asked to do is to design a probability experiment that we can use to actually come up with the experimental or empirical probability here. So we wanted to identify what does a trial look like and what does the event look like. So in order to do this, we're going to use a website called random.org. And in random.org, it gives you some different options for doing randomized things. So for example, you have a coin flipper, a dice roller, a playing card shuffler. So those are 3 pretty common tools that we use to do simulations. The other one that you'll use, that we'll use in the next example, is the integer generator. So just generating random numbers. So we're going to do I'm going to use the coin flipper just because a coin is 50-50, and if this having a boy or girl is 50-50, then this is a good way to simulate this situation. So in this case, I want to simulate having 4 children. So I'm going to flip 4 coins. You can select your coin type that you want. So let's use a loonie. And we're going to flip the coins to see the gender of the children that we have. So there you go right away. I flipped my coin. This is one trial. So flipping a coin 4 times or flipping 4 coins is considered one trial. And here the event has happened because I got 2 heads, and 2 tails. So heads in my case would represent girls, tails would represent boys, and in this case you can see I have 2 of each. That means I have 2 boys and 2 girls. So in this situation the event actually happened. So you want to keep a tally sheet as you go, and so if this is my tally sheet, A represents that the event happened, so I would just put a tally in column A to say that that happened, and then I would go back to my coin flipper and I would flip again, and then that would be my second trial. Oh, the event happened again, 2 boys and 2 girls. So I go back and I put another one in there, and then I go back and flip again. So I'm going to repeat this process 50 times. The event happened again. I'm going to try and go until it doesn't happen. Oh, it happened again. There we go. So this is an example where I have 4 boys, all 4 the same. So I would go to my tally chart and I would put a tally in A prime. The event didn't happen. So I want to keep doing this until these add up to 50. I have a total of 50 trials. Once I have 50 trials, if I want to find the probability that A happened, then I'm just going to take the number of outcomes or the number of trials where A happened. So I want to take the number that ends up in this column, and then I divide it by 50 to get the total, or to get the probability that the event happens. So that's the first example. The second example that we're going to look at, let's just go back to the tasks here. So we designed our experiments. You want to describe it. So I would talk about how I'm flipping 4 coins. The trial is flipping them and seeing what the outcome is, and then the event would be 2 of each type, 2 heads and 2 tails. Perform 50 trials, and then identify one specific outcome from the simulation that represents A. So in that case, what you can do is you can just do a little screenshot. So I could do a screenshot here to show this is an example of A prime, and then one of my examples where it did happen would be an example of the event A. And then finally, you calculate the empirical probability and express it as a fraction, a decimal, and a percent.